The United States and Russia said on Tuesday they had agreed to press ahead with efforts to end the war in Ukraine after holding talks in the Saudi capital, at which Kyiv was not represented. Ukraine says it will not accept any deal imposed on it without its consent. The nearly 5-hour meeting in Riyadh was a crucial moment, the first time US and Russian officials have sat down to discuss a halt to the conflict. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said the two countries would appoint representatives before holding regular talks. However, he said their positions were not necessarily closer together. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio said all sides would need to make concessions to end the 3-year-old war.
The European Union is going to have to be at the table at some point because they have sanctions as well that have been imposed. But I guess the point here is the goal is, and we agreed on what the goal is to bring an end to this conflict in a way that's fair, enduring, sustainable, and acceptable to all parties involved.
Even before the talks took place, US President Donald Trump's administration was accused by some European politicians of handing free concessions to Moscow last week by ruling out NATO membership for Ukraine. While the meeting in the Saudi capital was underway, Russia hardened its demands. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova told reporters in Moscow NATO must not admit Ukraine as a member. Going further, she said the alliance should abandon its 2008 promise to grant Ukraine membership at a future unspecified date. President Volodymyr Zelensky postponed his own trip to Saudi Arabia planned for Wednesday, saying no talks to end the war could be held behind Ukraine's back. The fast-moving diplomacy, beginning with a Putin-Trump phone call only 6 days earlier, has triggered alarm across Europe that the two leaders could cut a quick deal that rewards Moscow for its invasion.
British inflation hit a 10-month high in January. Wednesday's official data showed it sped up more than expected to 3% and is likely to rise further soon. The country's central bank and analysts had expected a rise to 2.8%. A number of factors pushed the figure up from December. They included a rise in car fuel prices and a tax hit to private school fees. Now the central bank expects consumer price inflation to peak at 3.7% in the third quarter of this year. It projects the rise will be driven mostly by higher energy costs and regulated tariffs for items like domestic water supply. But Governor Andrew Bailey argues a slowdown in the jobs market is likely to stop higher wage demands after an acceleration late last year. The central bank believes that limits the risk of a build-up in inflation pressure. Services inflation is a key measure of price pressures for bank policy makers. Data showed it stood at 5% in January compared with 4.4% in December. Core inflation, which excludes energy, food, alcohol and tobacco prices, also went up.
Australian billionaire Clive Palmer launched a political party on Wednesday, citing inspiration from US President Donald Trump just months before the country's federal election. The mining magnate is Australia's 18th richest person with a net worth of $2.1 billion, according to Forbes. He previously led the right-wing Australia Party and served as a lawmaker for 3 years from 2013. Palmer said Wednesday that his new Trumpet of Patriots party plans to run candidates in all 150 seats in Australia's lower house and the Senate.
The party believes in the policies of Donald Trump, which has shown to be effective in bringing management back on track. Peter Dutton has stated that he's no Donald Trump, and we agree with him. Albanese's presided over a declining standard of living for our country in each and every year he served as Prime Minister. Australia needs Trump policies. Australians want them.
Palmer also said his party would, quote, make Australia great again, referencing Trump's plans to cut government size. He was also critical of mass immigration and said that the party would only recognize 2 genders, reflecting positions also favored by Trump.
Australia should be for all Australians living here.
Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has not announced the election date, which could be as early as March after the central bank lowered interest rates on Tuesday. His government has seen its popularity drop because of rising living costs.
Polish border guards reported finding over 220 pounds of cocaine on the bottom of the Baltic Sea. That's while they were conducting operations to protect critical infrastructure on Tuesday. A border guard statement said 7 people were detained in the case and that the drugs could have a black market value of up to $15 million. The statement added that the drugs were found on the seabed in the Gulf of Gdansk in northern Poland. Those detained face up to 20 years in prison if convicted, authorities said. Baltic Sea nations are on high alert for any incidents involving underwater critical infrastructure, which is why border guards were there. NATO has said it will boost its presence in the area after several incidents in which such infrastructure has suffered suspicious damage.
The Vatican says Pope Francis has the onset of double pneumonia. The diagnosis complicates treatment for the 88-year-old pontiff and indicates a further deterioration in his fragile health. Bilateral pneumonia is a serious infection that can inflame and scar both lungs and makes breathing more difficult. Francis has been suffering from a respiratory infection for more than a week and was admitted to Rome's Gemelli Hospital on February 14th. The Vatican said he underwent a CAT scan Tuesday afternoon and that his condition continues to present a, quote, complex picture. On Tuesday, the Vatican said that Francis was grateful for all the support he has received in recent days and remains in good spirits despite the circumstances. The Pope has been plagued by ill health in recent years, including regular bouts of flu, sciatica nerve pain, and an abdominal hernia that required surgery.